On August 17, 2035, we found out that a terrible disaster had already happened 5 years ago. From that day on, monsters began popping up everywhere, hungry to eat anyone who moved and leaving only humans as their dinner. High up on a rooftop, a young man sits in hiding, and it's revealed that years later, awakened workers have kept 40% of humanity alive. The young man sat still, using his cell phone's radio to help pass the time. The announcer mocked the awakened, claiming that humanity still survived because of walls built from super strong metal. Hearing a noise, the boy jumps up to check what's going on. He realized the noises were monsters wandering the streets below. Just by taking a quick look, he figures out that 6 of the beasts are Class C and better than average, while only 1 is Class A, just as Jill had predicted. The young man grabs his binoculars to get a better look around. He noticed there was an empty parking lot close by. Reflecting, he says things are about to get real, and suddenly yellow lightning flashes in the place he was watching, making the boy smile as he calls it the sudden gate. Right in the center of the golden light, a path begins to appear. Watching quietly, the young man notes that someone told him people usually walk out of these portals. A man leaps into the bright light to prove the truth, landing safely on the ground right after. Even though the traveler still held his arms crossed over his face like an X and kept his eyes shut, he shouted with pure joy that he had finally returned, lifting his arms high in celebration. But when he arrives, he draws the attention of the creatures nearby, which immediately start running toward him. The man makes a sour face and knows he's in big trouble the moment he arrives. He stares at the thing that looks like a satanic octopus and can't help but wonder why such a scary monster is even here. Perched on the rooftop, the boy with the binoculars keeps smiling as he watches, clearly knowing that moment was coming. Down below, a green beast readies a fierce attack on the newcomer, and the spying boy whispers that the fight has finally started. After a long and tiring battle, the traveler is hurt, and the hero realizes that facing this powerful Class C monster will require at least 10 strong hunters. Then the man strikes with his move, the Cradle of Swords, sending thousands of blades of light soaring toward the monster. Following the traveler's command, he uses his hand to coordinate the strike and hit several parts of the creature's body. Up there, the hero admits that the man has already killed 6 monsters in just 1 hour. The most amazing part is that he did it all by himself, leaving only a class of monsters behind. Even if every hunter in the world joined forces together, they still couldn't defeat this foe. The nosy boy grinned and said that just hearing about a copy master is nothing like watching him work. The thing that paused for a moment suddenly strikes with deadly force, causing the time traveler to freeze and gasp. He simply waits a bit longer, biding his time until every ounce of that power finally belongs to him. Dodging the strike, while flying through the air, the copy master prepares to counterattack amid powerful rays of light, revealing that he is using his ghost sprint ability right after his demonic blade. With a stunning move, the man finally brings the monster down. The boy with the binoculars jumped with excitement and shouted that the battle they had just witnessed was something no one could ever truly understand. Now that the hunter is down, he has to keep moving. As he gets closer, the boy realizes everything is unfolding exactly as Kyu Hyung predicted. He rushes to touch the hunter, calling out to ask if he's okay, remembering that the man who gave him the tip said they had saved someone and gained their power, but things look terrible now as the man on the ground begins coughing up red juice that looks like strawberries. The boy then starts to think about how he can help him. After opening his eyes, the injured man asks, "What year is it?" Speaking up, the boy tells us it's August 2035. Hearing those words, the man jumps up and explains that he has lived 30 years in his homeland, while only 5 years have passed here. Feeling scared, the protagonist begged him to stay still and lie down, but the man said it was already too late. The boy stays silent, already sure the man won't make it, while the traveler sighs in regret for spending all his strength to open the portal. The boy stood silent with a sad look on his face. With his fate known, the hunter asks the boy to look for his family and care for them if they are still alive, so he sadly hands a photo to his helper. The young man admits he's too weak and shaken to look after anyone else. The man promised that if the other man does the job, he won't charge him and will hand over his power instead. All he needs is to say his name to begin the transfer. He found out that this world is being hit by huge disasters. Through all the changes in the main character's life, 2 things have always stayed the same. We are whisked to one of those haunted places, where the boy lies hurt on the cold ground. Sitting before him, an armored man shouts that he has finally found Cho Jan-huk. Everything took place in June 28. The blonde man gets teased for trying to wiggle free like a slippery eel. We see the boy has taken a terrible hit to his belly and is badly hurt. Looking ahead, he admits he might not get away this time, and wonders who told the man he was here. With a wicked grin, the villain reveals that Jin Soo paid him $1 million to stay out of his way. The news so angers Hook that he shouts a curse at the traitor. Snatching up his sword, the man declares that with the answers he needs, he can finally end what he began, and in that moment, the protagonist realizes those words sound strangely familiar. He grabs a glowing stone and says it showed him how to turn his life around. When the villain spotted the artifact, he didn't even flinch. Then the boy explains that this rock is the regression stone. The man's eyes go wide as he sees what's coming, so he shouts at his men to stop the boy, but it's too late and a bright light starts to shine. Smiling, our boy waves goodbye and promises to find Jonathan Curtis in the past, hoping only to return to a time when his siblings were still alive. It all comes together, and we find ourselves right now as he travels back 23 years to a world hanging by a thread, ready to meet the traveler who promised to carry on his power. The two shake hands to start the transfer of their thoughts. Puck promises that this time everything will be different. A fierce wind blows as the system asks the man who once held such power if he wants his body to vanish when it's done. Believing he was already dead, he pressed the button to act, and in that moment, the hero gained every single one of his powers. When the number hits 20%, the man on the ground warns the boy not to let his guard down. Even though things are already moving, one wrong move can cancel it all. Suddenly, a huge creature popped up right behind our boy, leaving him in a real pickle. Laughing to himself, the hunter admits that life is a total mess. Park Kang-ho stares at the monster he thought he'd beaten, and jokes that in novels, the hero just goes home to live happily ever after. Right after that warning, he'll lose his powers soon, so the boy must flee immediately, because there's nothing else to do, and since life is a mess, one must simply live with it, leaving only one last piece of advice for Hook: adapt and survive whatever comes next. To his shock, the boy snatches up an iron bar and declares that he isn't crazy, just finally done with running away. Determined, he steps up to face the legendary monster, only to find that it leaves him alone. It turned its back and walked away, leaving him confused. He dropped the iron bar and sighed with relief, admitting that the tension had almost killed him. The hunter boasts about his luck, but the boy insists it was really his doing, because without his help, the monster would never have been so badly hurt. Before Hook could finish his words, he saw the man fading away and got terrified, but the ghostly figure just laughed and told him he had to find his family or be haunted forever. The transfer is finally done, but a warning flashes that the user's body is too weak to hold the new system and must be rebuilt through awakening. The reconstruction might hurt, but that's the final warning before you catch him off guard. Right away, Duck feels a sharp crack in his neck and realizes his tough act is hurting way too much. His body snaps in a violent twist as he screams that every bone in him is shattering and his skin is being torn apart. The boy tears off his mask, looks up, and screams loudly, only for a man in a car to roll up the next morning with a tune in his whistle. Then, something right before him grabs his attention. The hero is the one standing there, loading boxes onto the pickup truck. As Kai Chil-him walks toward the boy, he asks what Kai is doing there. The man asks the same question again without answering, since the boy was the one who requested time off and swapped shifts with him, while Puck lies and claims he was just about to go home when a monster trapped him there. His colleague stared in shock and asked if he was crazy enough to sleep there and risk dying. The protagonist sidesteps the question and tells him to just leave that part behind. He says he can't be there alone so early without the rest of the team. The man also lied, claiming he woke up earlier to arrive first because he suspected the boy knew someone was hiding secrets there, though his true struggle was that he had already tried and failed to use his special power, leading to a brutal beating by others that made people think he was dead. That's why he fell so hard. The fool told everyone at registration that he could copy their special powers, and the anger of those who couldn't stand losing their unique gifts so easily made his end inevitable. After saying goodbye and getting into the car, Chuck glances at the passenger seat where he keeps the 3 Class B crystals and 4 Class C crystals he stole from Hyung, even though he feels terrible because those very items saved his life. Now he has to figure out how to make use of them, because selling them isn't an option. We also found that after Hyung woke up with Kang-ho's power, he couldn't find any of those mysterious crystals. When he came back the next day to get them, they had all vanished. The man's worst regret was letting those crystals go unprotected. That's why Heck decided to grab everything as soon as he could, thinking that if he only took monster cores, he might be able to sell them quietly without anyone noticing. But if he pulls the core from a powerful monster, he'll instantly draw the association and the government, turning his secret into a government investigation that leaves him with nothing but a handful of cheap crystals in the worst-case scenario. He stares at the phone, and with a sigh decides there's only one way to speed up the awakening registration. A voice answers the phone to ask why he called, but the boy on the other end smiles and tells Shieldman he has money and wants to meet for beers if Shieldman will do him a favor, promising to pay for everything. Inside the safe zone of Sue, Huck stepped into a building and began talking to someone. The man standing before him offered to pay $600 for everything he brought, but the boy politely asked him to give a little more. Feeling a bit shy, the buyer admits that things like these used to sell for $800, but now people don't want them as much, while a disappointed boy starts to wonder what his next move should be. As the man talks about fewer people, higher costs, and nobody wanting to spend money, the whole situation feels like a tough tightrope walk. Out of nowhere, 2 children burst through the door, tears streaming down their faces. Neither their gets down on one knee to talk straight to his little sister Choi Eun-jong and his little brother Choi Eun-chol. He points a finger and asks why the 2 of them are hanging out there when they should be at school. Suddenly the man stops him and says the boy shouldn't scare the little ones who only came because they were so worried. The boy then warned that his siblings would suffer if anything bad happened to him. Cut gently asks the children to stop crying and come home with him for lunch. His little brothers and sisters beam with delight at the thought of eating grilled meat. Suddenly Koi Unjun is called over and told by the landlord's grandson that the upstairs grandma warned him to stop by immediately since his rent is seriously overdue. Everyone piled into the car and drove to the apartment as promised, where Huck had already taken care of lunch. Around the table sit his brothers and sisters, his grandma, and her grandson. The old lady asks why he brought so much food, and he smiles to say he bought meat for her, but she worries he should have saved it for his little siblings. Huck hands her the envelope with the overdue rent money without saying a word. She snatched up the envelope and told him she knew exactly where he was at, so she'd only ask for half the money. The boy, taken aback, insists it isn't needed. But the old lady's grandson says that hard times are meant for helping one another, so he decides to accept the offer. His grandma taps him on the head with a spoon and tells him the apartment is hers, so he better leave her alone. While making a joke as he touches his head, the boy claims that the house will belong to him when she passes away. The old lady threatens to hit him again, blaming Changra for her upset stomach. The boy skips studying to wander around and pretend he's working. He claims he's getting ready to learn from real hunters now that the awakened era has made college useless, which annoys the lady who asks Skuck to talk to her grandson because the youth usually listens to him. But then the protagonist's phone rings on the balcony where Holman tells him his guild leader wants him to appear, even though he won't get paid. If he does well, he might just become a regular part of the group, even if it's in a smaller role. He agrees, and his friend wonders why he suddenly wants to carry their bags. The boy can't speak the truth, so he claims his job is getting too hard and he's looking for a new way out. Hellman tells him to be at Gate 7 on the west wall tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. As he hangs up the phone, our boy whispers that everything is going exactly as planned. The next morning, he showed up at the gate, ready to master the tanker trick and rush straight to the association to sign up. His friend walks up, calls his name, and tells him he got there early. With a smile on his face and a wave to the world, the boy keeps his mind locked on the plan he made. Man then calls his leader Hong, a tanker, and tells him this is the friend he mentioned earlier. The man introduces himself as the oldest and tells the boy that he can ask him anything he likes. Reaching out to shake hands, the boy says he can't wait to start working together. Young shakes hands, claiming to share the same feeling even though he has no idea his skills were stolen, while a message suddenly appears for Hook telling him he can pick 3 of those copied abilities to keep. Without even thinking twice, he grabs Iron Skin, Shield Attack, and Overload, and the system immediately tells Hook that the skills are copied and ready to be checked in his menu. Our boy believed that just a quick handshake was all it took to give him the power of a massive tank. Standing before him, the armored man just watches, completely baffled by the strange smile on his face. Yu-min asks why the man is smiling so creepily while shaking his hand, but the stranger just laughs and says his grip is very strong, which makes the awkward moment feel less tense. Shyly letting go of the team leader's hand, the protagonist apologizes, only to hear the man say it's okay and invite him into the car right in front. Just near the car, we spot 2 guys talking while a girl and another guy look closely at their bows. The driver is all set, but a young woman beside him is completely lost in her phone. The armored man tells Jun Hook to say hello to everyone before they all get on the ship. But the boy can only worry that copying the powers of stronger awakened ones will make the skills of these people useless. He realizes he has to learn the group's skills now, even if he erases them later. As the journey begins, the truck rolls away with the team inside. Sitting there, our boy shows that he's already mastered 13 skills, 3 of which are for healing. We're back to that girl who got distracted before, and she's still staring at her phone. As he gazes at her, the boy shows that he has unlocked a map skill, 2 hunter skills, and 7 negotiator skills, and the coolest part is that he can now use them all at once. We see a town packed with buildings where lizard-like beasts, with purple tongues and red eyes, sprint through the streets, clearly hunting to attack someone. Pai stands firm with his shield, demanding to know where the creature thinks it's going, while the protagonist wonders how mixing different skills could make him incredibly powerful. Lee Danny leaps into the fight on his leader's command and looses his arrows with deadly precision, striking a monster in 3 separate places. The leader then shouts at Waijin to end the fight right now. Perched high atop a building, the girl quietly says she gets it. Then she sends an arrow flying fast to hit the monster right in the eye. The creature drops to the ground and Hyung cheers the team on, telling them just 2 enemies are left. While watching from the back, Jung Hook wonders if he should just sign up for fun. They decided it's best to wait until the hunt is done, since making things complicated now isn't needed. After a while, the team leader walks up, calls the hunt a success, and praises the protagonist for carrying so many byproducts all day. Suddenly something snaps the man's focus. We spot another guy walking up, his bag slung over his shoulder, muttering that he can't hold on any longer. Shenmin tells us his friend was a famous fighter at school. The man asks if they are talking about the school before the disaster, and the boy confirms that the protagonist, even without training, left all the athletes far behind. As Jun-Hook listens to everyone, he turns red when the team leader calls him a delinquent, but his friend quickly steps in to say that Jun only fought back against those who deserved it, and always dreamed of becoming a detective. The man wraps up the talk and slips an envelope full of pay into our boy's hand. The boy refuses the gift, but Hyung insists he take it and say thanks, admitting his help changed everything and suggesting the boy stay on as a porter. With a grin, our boy says he'll give it some thought. As the man walks away promising to meet soon, Keeman asks if you'll head to the barbecue, but you shake your head, saying you've already got other plans for that night. Curious, the young man asks about the plans, and if they mean a date with a girl. More time passes, and we see the SU Awakened Association building. At the special counter for big fuel tankers, a nervous woman glances around after hearing something that made her uneasy. Standing before her, Hook hears the girl ask him to repeat his words, and after he confirms he came to register as an awakened, she presses him to be sure he's truly an awakened tanker. He confirmed that he woke up that very morning. The girl stares at him, half believing he's impossible, while the nervous boy wonders if he messed up his words. The girl tells him he's the first tanker to wake up in months and congratulates him, asking only for his ID so she can keep the process going. Our boy quickly slides the paper over, points out a bench where others are waiting, and the girl tells him to take a seat and wait his turn. With nothing else to do, the boy sat down. And sadness washes over his face as he rests his hand on his head, wondering if he thought he was dreaming the moment he first opened his eyes after coming back. Then he remembered being locked up and watching his siblings visit only to die in a car crash, a tragedy that made him weep endlessly and drove him to become evil. When he stepped back into the past and saw the two were still alive, his heart swelled with such pure joy that he was sure he must be dreaming. Once he saw it was truly real, he vowed never to lose the people he loves again. He will shield everyone from harm using every single thing he possesses. He wakes up his system and checks the reports. Noticing that his resistance ranged from 6,000 to 15,000 while his strength was randomly set between 2,000 and 5,000, Duck realized his start was actually pretty good for a first awakening, and then a confusing notification appeared saying that core generation was underway, so he just waited for it to finish to see what would happen. Then out of nowhere, someone steps up and shouts his name. He turns his head to see who it is, meeting the girl who helped him as she stands beside a smiling man in a lab coat, handing back his ID and telling him that his identity has been verified and now he just needs to follow the doctor for the test. The man steps forward, offers his hand, and tells them his name is Lim Ji-hoon. Our boy introduces himself and says it's a pleasure to meet him. The two men shake hands, and the man explains that he's ready, so the test can start right now. In the elevator, the boy thinks to himself that he tried to copy the man's power, but since he isn't awakened, it's strange that someone who works for the association would have none. In a quiet room, the man tells us the test is split into 3 parts. First, they hook up wires to Cuck's body to check his strength, and the doctor tells him to relax for 10 minutes while he lies down, followed by the second stage where he has to use his special shield attack power. After a while, the boy grabs his shield and gets ready to battle a fake monster while a doctor and another person peek through a glass window to watch. Ji-hoon tells the boy he's about to start measuring how much he can get his dummy to attack. But without a second thought, the protagonist obeys, and the man tells him he can strike anywhere he pleases. Our boy then chose to smash the dummy's head with his shield, leaving the doctors totally stunned. Now move to the third stage and watch the doctor hand Huck a cup that looks full of hot coffee. The man then explains that because of trouble picking the right judges, the final part will only happen in 2 days. As the boy reached for his coffee, he asked if the tests for the day were going okay, and the doctor nodded and said yes. All he has to do is walk over to the front desk to grab the essential gear. Our boy grits his teeth in excitement, saying he can't believe the day has finally come for his new standard equipment. Jo-hoon joins the worry, admitting he feels uneasy as the number of tankers and healers drops. While taking a sip of his drink, the protagonist leans in and listens very carefully. After that, the man explained that most people who have to wake up are choosing to become negotiators or support staff. And don't forget that awakening stones are super rare to find, especially the ones needed for tankers and healers. After thinking it over, the protagonist realizes the hardest part is that a stone doesn't guarantee someone will wake up, and since he is a criminal, he can't register as an awakened person anyway. The doctor pauses to apologize, admitting he was just thrilled to spot a tanker for the first time in ages. Cuck stands up and says it's no big deal. Jae-hun wraps things up by telling the boy to show up on time for his third test, which he'll text him tomorrow. The man stretches out his hand, and after the protagonist stares at it in surprise, he smiles, shakes it back, and says he can't wait to work together. As mate gets closer, the sky outside is turning dark. Hook, dragging his suitcase down the street, calls out to Hu to ask what's wrong. The boy then tells him it's not a big deal, just that he woke up as a tanker earlier. The guy on the other end, totally shocked, asks if he's actually serious or just pulling my leg. Peering through a shop window, our boy insists he'd never joke about that kind of thing before stepping inside, convinced he's found the right spot, while his friend finally believes what he heard, laughing. The guy looked impressed because it was unbelievable. Since his friend was just there a few hours ago, the young man can't believe he's suddenly a tanker, so he asks if Heck is still on the line without waiting for an answer. Our boy is so distracted by that super expensive mantis front leg model, costing $3 million, that he can't look away. He remembers the phone call, noting how shaky the connection got, then brings up his earlier visit to the association, explaining that since only the final part of the hunt remains, he wants to know if he can join one more round to watch. His friend then asks why he would do that if he already knows how things work. The boy answered that he was so busy carrying things he didn't notice all the moves Hong was making. Right out of the blue, our boy spots something, and his face lights up with joy. Hong stays on the line to tell you he'll ask the team leader and get back to you with an answer. The boy thanked the man, snatched up the item, and told the seller he wanted to take the bracelet and a way out. Thinking to himself, he murmurs that if he is right, that must be the artifact wielded by Jaden Russell, the third-ranked villain. Before things went sour, he was 8th on the list when he went for drinks with a man who showed him how to get the bracelet and the main potions. The seller stares coldly without a word, lost in thought over the 30% power boost the item will give, while the boy breaks the silence by asking why the man is looking at him like that. The seller apologizes for bothering you and asks if the boy had already woken up. Our boy agreed, but suddenly the man swung a fist like he meant to punch him, only for the boy to catch the arm right in front of his face and prove he was right. The man smiled and revealed he was also awakened with a teleportation power, leaving our boy relieved but still racing from how close he came to getting hit. Reaching out to bump fists, he thinks, I need to copy that power too. Suddenly, another man steps forward, introduces himself as Huang Mansu, and reveals he can twist space itself. Huck tells him it's a pleasure to meet him, but inside he wishes he had that kind of charm too. The first seller claims he heard the boy on the phone and wonders if he truly is a tanker. Sitting right beside him, the other man explained that his special power makes him feel like royalty among the awakened. Our boy is surprised to find us awake like this and wonders if this is just a side gig, but the two men shake their heads and insist that running the shop is actually their main job. The seller, who has slightly longer hair, explains that with so many people gaining special support powers, finding a job has become really difficult. The other explains that to make a living, he decided to open a shop selling antiques and supplies for the awakened. He then gives the boy the solution he wanted and tells him that both things will cost 300,000 Caro. X grins, knowing he now has everything he needs. Back home, he watches the bracelet glow a deep purple, realizing that the crystals in his special strawberry juice have finally linked him to everything he needs. As the boy slips the accessory onto his arm and calls it Twilight, a message pops up announcing that the 38th artifact out of 101 created by the original Master System is now active, officially registering the toy bracelet as a combined artifact that joins the rest of the system's collection. We also find that since a user of the original system registered the accessory, it has been completely unlocked. Confused by the mystery of the 101 artifacts, Hook wonders what they all mean. His phone rings, pulling him back from his daydream. He stared at the device and admitted it gave him the chills. At the other end of the line, Thielman says he already told Hung about you, but the man insisted it was impossible for him to have awakened as a tanker. And because of that, he won't trust it until he sees it himself, while our boy laughs, thinking he was turned down. His friend laughs along and tells him it's okay to relax now. Suddenly, the power our boy copied from thin air kicks in and a portal pops open. Even though he's scared, he slides his arm through as Chillman warns him not to be late, and the next day, with his suitcase in hand, the boy promises to be on time and see him again tomorrow. The following morning, the whole team showed up at Gate 7 just like we planned. A voice shouts a greeting, leaving everyone standing there in shock. Hook stands ready in his association gear, shield in hand, while Killman gawks at the look, and Hung cuts in to confirm that the boy is truly a tanker now. Also shocked, the man asks how that could happen in just one day. Feeling embarrassed and caught lying, the protagonist claims he woke up just while heading home. The leader then says it's truly amazing because nature has stopped waking up so often. The boy nodded in agreement, saying he'd face his final test the next day and asking if the man could help him prepare. The man admits he might not know everything, but as a veteran who started this job before him, he has one crucial piece of advice to share. He grabs his shield and asks the young man if he knows why he always carries it. He then says it wasn't his birth as a tanker that made him special, but the fact that he chose to become one. When fighting monsters, the body eventually gives out, so the boy must remember that the only thing that can bring him back isn't his skills or stats but his sheer determination. Following the advice, the group marches straight onto the battlefield. Right in the center, a beast that looks like a mix of a bear and an armadillo is sleeping, while the hidden leader whispers to Hung to confirm that it is indeed a true Decker. Hung nods and says, "Then let's get started." He then tells Jen Dejun to look for the monster again. He could even think about it. The young man started drawing the map. Facing the map, the leader tells everyone they are true deckers, monsters with weak attacks and slow moves, but defenses as strong as an E-rank foe. Kyun looks worried and admits he isn't sure if they have enough strength. One of his friends points out that the journey hasn't even begun, yet he is already too tired to go on. Another scared young man added that he fears the monster will rush right at him. The leader cheers them on, reminding everyone that the prey is slow, and boasting that his group is one of the toughest veteran teams he's ever led. As he walks up to the young woman with long hair, he jokes that her day as a healer will be easy since her hair is so long. Hong asks Jill if the traps are all set up, and the young man nods and says they are ready. He grabs his shield, asks Xiumin and Dong to follow him, and tells Haisu and Hook to stay put. Protagonist let it be known he got the order. Watching his teammates fade away, he wonders why they died, knowing a monster like a Dumiki shouldn't be able to wipe them out, so he must figure out the real reason. He looks around and realizes something feels off. Back on the battlefield, the tanker leader asks Yin if everything is ready, and she nods that it is. Then the man yells at the girl to pull the trigger and start shooting. The young girl fires an arrow that strikes the monster's shell right in the center. She then promised to move on to the next part just like we planned. The monster stands up, furious and ready to fight, while the leader shouts for everyone to get ready. By his side, his partners nod and let him know they get it. Balancing on just 2 legs, the creature gets ready to strike with all its power. Following the plan, the archer fires 3 perfect shots, and the roaring bear armadillo mix proves it hurt while the young man realizes he's finally doing a great job. Han praises him but warns him to stay back, only for the young man to charge forward anyway, leaving Han worried because that wasn't the plan. Right at the monster, the young man declares he won't just poke at its back, he wants to finish it off and go home. His arrow struck True Decker right in the armpit, making the monster even more furious than before. And the leader spoke up, telling the boy to stop his foolishness and finally listen to him. But the boy laughs and taunts the creature, saying it's so slow it can't even hit him. He didn't realize he was talking too much until the monster suddenly punched him in the face, sending him flying hard into the wall. Feeling worried, Chielman shouts out to call his friend. He decided to rush in himself, his anger driving him forward. The young man leaps through the air, ready to drive his sword into the monster. Hitting the shell perfectly caused sparks to fly everywhere. Unluckily for him, the blow didn't kill the monster, and now the beast is watching him while he screams to warn his team that its shell is too tough for his sword to scratch. Turning around, the True Decker turns his attention back to the boy who was thrown. With only seconds left before it ends, the boy throws his arms out to block the creature's razor-sharp claws. But Kyung steps in front to save him, striking the enemy with all his strength using his shield. With a single hit, the beast seemed to fall back into a deep slumber, only to snap awake and rise in the blink of an eye, prompting the leader to shout orders for Tumen to charge in while Yiji and Dongyuk strike from afar. He then activates his skill, sending blue waves rippling through the air, while the unbothered creature keeps roaring as the man confidently declares it's time to finish the job in aggressor mode. With its paws, the True Decker claws at the man's shield, but a flying arrow suddenly snaps its attention away as the archer whispers to Yijin that the moment has arrived. From above, the girl unleashes a non-stop barrage of shots that strike the monster right in the face. So annoyed, the creature curls up and switches into its armadillo shell mode. Beer gives the order right then for Chi-Min to start the melee attack. As soon as the monster turns, the young man rushes in from behind while his leader strikes from the front. After hitting the beast, the tanker shouts for everyone to keep hitting it until he says stop. The protagonist's friend, who was also fighting, groaned that just staring at the monster's back made him feel so tired. Our boy stands far away from the fight, watching and listening to every sound and sight around him. Standing by his side, the healer promises that if this plan works, the hunt will end right there, and she reveals she wants to join because True Deckers are so rare. Only once or twice a year, if you're lucky. Jack asks how often the team has faced this challenge, and the girl replies that they've only done so 3 times in the past 5 months. With a warm smile, she tells the boy he's eager to learn and he apologizes for asking so many questions. She hands him the device and tells him it can help. Jeremy Corp built the M7 measuring device to help Jeremy watch and soak up everything he'd need for his test tomorrow. Our boy slipped the device's lens over his eyes and suddenly saw all kinds of cool stats. Next, the young woman mentions that a real Decker boasts a massive 30,000 health and an even crazier 150,000 shield, which is pretty wild for a monster. Duke realizes that cracking the monster's shell will take forever. Out of nowhere, Hyong Nim shouts that something's wrong because the team's life signs have vanished from the map. Young asks if that means those members have already been taken out. With nerves jumping in his chest, the main character asks if the news is truly true. From far away, we spot one building starting to shake and split its walls with deep cracks. Suddenly, a massive hole bursts open with a loud crash, revealing the giant mantis, a hungry predator with claws dripping in strawberry juice. As the creature drew near, our boy shouted that things were looking very bad. Still fighting, the leader frantically asks how much longer until the monster reaches them. With cold sweetness in his voice, the blonde boy says there are at most 2 minutes left, so the man shouts for Hook and Heso to get out of the area immediately and take cover. The hero finally realizes why he felt so shaky whenever he heard those orders. He grabs the healer's hand and yells they must flee, while the panicked girl agrees but asks where he's going as she sees him heading for Hyung. He replies that since the exit is so close by, it's basically impossible to get out. The leader spots them coming and demands to know why the boy isn't running away like he was told. Holding his shield, he says there's no way to fight it because the monster is too fast, and with a true Decker around, if the two monsters join forces, things will turn really ugly and end in total destruction. With the blood in its eyes, the mantis gets ready to fight with all its strength. Facing the monster, our boy says the only thing they can do is hold on for as long as they can. Desperate, Hyung asks if the young man has lost his mind for thinking all awakened tankers are the same, completely forgetting he's just a rookie. While they argue, a monster keeps grumbling right in front of them. The leader warns that a total newcomer who has never faced virtual combat should never recklessly attack a mantis. His explanation is cut short when the impatient mantis finally strikes. With nowhere else to go, Huck raises his shield to block the mantis's attacks while realizing that once he gets his registration card, he'll be in a deadly battle where even rookies must win. The boy chooses to stand his ground and strikes the monster's head, leaving everyone else stunned by his sheer courage. Human calls himself an idiot, realizing this isn't just a test but a deadly battle that could cost him his life. Unbothered, the protagonist says he knows all about it, but now it's time to face the true Decker right behind them, because if they don't stop him, everyone there will be wiped out in an instant. The skinny armadillo monster tears into the two young men without any mercy. Hung steps up with his shield to block the blow, and calls on Jungkook to team up with the hero, hoping their talk will buy them precious seconds. At once, the other young man followed orders and came to stand beside our boy. The leader grips his shield as hard as he can and begs Kamen to stay and help him fight the monster. Suddenly, the creature makes a wild move that flings the man far away. Down on the ground, he shouts for Gil to quickly set a binding trap on the true Decker. The void acted immediately without any second thought. The trap spins wildly at the monster, snatching its legs with chains the moment it gets near. The boy shouts that it'll be over in just 5 minutes. As the leader stands up, he sees the monster blocking the front and the mant blocking the back, trapping them with no way out and leaving them in a desperate spot. Kuk swings his shield with all his might to both hit and protect himself, walking beside the other boy who lets fly with his arrow every 5 seconds. But the giant mantis just keeps going, untouched by the hits. Refusing to quit, our boy hits the creature again, only to see its glowing red eyes stare back at him in a moment that leaves him completely shocked. From the rooftop, the archer cheers for Suyi Jin's strike, but she shouts that there's no time for praise, and the mantis, spotting the attacker, turns its retreat toward the girl. Huck yells at the girl to run, but she knows it's too late as the mantis's legs are already at her window, and when it strikes she takes a hit that leaves her badly hurt. Down below, the archer screams her name in a desperate plea. He kept shooting arrows, trying to make the monster look his way. He fears all is lost without success, so the worried healer by his side asks what she should do next. Gazing at his bracelet, our boy realizes his mistake, understanding that he can't become strong in just one night. He figured that striking twice with his shield would keep his magic item powered up. He searches his mind for a way to save Yunin from death. Staring at the data on his screen, he considers using a skill to boost the bracelet's power by 50%, a move that could be dangerously risky. But nowhere else to turn, the boy makes the hard choice to go through with it, even if it costs him everything. Blue light starts spreading around him and hits the broken window just as the mantis is about to rush in and finish the injured girl who can't run away. Hick holds his breath, hoping his move will pull the monster back, but beside him, the young healer knows she can't just stand there and watch her friend die, so she must do something. She dashes away, leaving our little boy all by himself. Having nothing better to do, he gazes ahead and sees that his plan has come to life.
The team leader tells Yi Jin to leave, but Hux insists she will be okay.
Han wonders how he could say that, but our boy says he managed to scare the monster away from her. The man can't believe his eyes, so he asks the boy what's happening, but the boy doesn't stop to answer because he's already running straight at the mantis. As he smashes forward with his shield, he realizes it's too dangerous to keep his power active while only making simple hits. Realizing he has no other option, he activates both his destructive and negotiating powers just as the giant prey mantis lunges at him, but he leaps out of the way at the last second. Once his skills activate, Huck realizes his basic attacks now match a dealer's, and as a new sensation washes over him, he smiles and remembers feeling this same spark before his downfall, a surge that woke every cell in his body and once lifted him to the 8th rank among villains. They call this intense feeling hyper-perception. Ogoy dives back into the attack, his power surging as the mantis's legs begin to snap. Finally able to stand, Yin pushes himself up inside the building. But when she tries to use her weapon, the arrow slips from her arm, which is bleeding so much it's draining her strength. Out of nowhere, Haisu pops up, catching the young woman completely off guard. She uses her power to heal her friend, pleading for silence so she isn't distracted by screams. The archer then says she should be helping cook instead of healing her wounds. Her friend says the boy will be fine and tells her to wait until he gets better before she can help. Peering out the window, she whispered that Cook was crazy because he looked just like the team leader, having taken not a single scratch yet. We see our boy striking again, proving just how strong he really is. As Cheelman and Hun battle the true Decker while the beast roars in fury, the team leader warns that the shield is fading and urges the boy to stop wasting time on basic attacks, instead ramping up his power before the trap disappears without worrying about him. With the monster nearly free, it readies itself to strike the man. Cowering behind his cover, he whispered that this was the strike he had been waiting for. Just as the blow is about to land, Kung dashes forward to strike first, while a voice screams that the trap won't last another 10 seconds. The man shouts at Schumann, telling him that the time has finally come. Grasping the message, the young man draws his weapon and unleashes a critical strike against the panel. As the young man prays for the monster to burst, a zigzagging blue beam of light shoots out from its body. His move works, and the real hacker starts to crumble into dust. Kung yells out to the whole team that this side is safe. And before the creature's old spot, your friend finds a red crystal and says they also found a new skill card. The leader cuts the boy's joy short, telling him there's no time for fun and ordering him to go help Hick right now. Our boy keeps hitting the mantis over and over again, pulling out green slime with every strike. Seeing what's happening, the tanker man can't believe it and asks how this is even possible. As the boy fights by himself, he glances back and tells Kumon to leave if he's finished his Stopping his approach, the young man admits he's truly crazy since he's now giving orders even after fighting alone. To him, a hero is someone who saved their friends, but Hick asks if he's really sure, and after the man nods yes, he turns to the room and asks if anyone has any objections. Although everyone claims they support the idea, Ijin insists she isn't the kind of person who can live with debt. Then someone from the top of the building shoots an arrow that goes right past the mantis. With a determined leap, our boy drives his shield straight into the monster's head, stopping its struggles as it crumples to the ground. Team's mouth goes wide as he grabs Kemen's attention and presses for an answer. Are you absolutely certain your friend woke up as a tanker? The sun sets and darkness creeps over the battlefield. The team leader pushes everyone to rush out fast, knowing that even though they're tired, staying any longer will just bring more monsters right to them. Jack pays close attention to the green slime dripping off his shield as he wipes it clean. Hellman steps up and wonders if the boy has ever used it before, leaving the child puzzled as he asks what Hellman means. Explaining his ability to see threats before they happen, the young man says he's talking about hyperperception because he used it to survive tough fights back in school. Our boy stays silent while his friend shakes his head, saying there's no way he'd ignore it after everything he just did. She asks if the boy is okay, since he used to get headaches after using that skill. He slips his shield away, smiles, and says he's feeling better thanks to the awakening. His friend insists he's got to owe him a beer tonight, and that drink is happening right now with no excuses allowed. Huck looks at his ringing phone and says he'll have to wait until another day so he can spend time with his siblings. Hung sneaks up to catch him off guard, asking who he really is and how a rookie tanker could fight so well without even waking up the day before. The boy turned around and said, maybe, while Keel Min, worried he might say something foolish, tried to stop him. But the boy just says that because things were so bad, he probably pumped out so much adrenaline that his strength became like a superhero's. The man, sure it was a lie, asks if the boy really thinks he'll believe that story. Our boy chooses to hold his peace. The leader looks at the other members and says he has something to tell everyone. Then it says that on that day, Cut took down a mantis all by himself, but since it's not officially recorded yet, the whole team could be in trouble if anyone finds out. That's why everyone has to keep their mouths shut and never tell a soul about what happened that day. The archer lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding when H speaks, while the other two burst into laughter, promising to face whatever lies ahead at the grave. Surprised, our boy calls the man, who thanks him and leaves him more confused, explaining that the leader said if not for him, everyone would be dead, so he's including him in the profit sharing as a tanker. Wendell with his mouth wide open, the boy asks if that means the others won't get what they were expecting. Jesus walks up and agrees he's right, knowing no one will say a word, so she smiles and tells him that if anyone complains, he should let her know right away, so she can instantly stop healing anyone who goes against their will. The boy's phone rings again and he says he has to answer, so the curious girl asks if it's his girlfriend. With a smile, the boy claims it's just his siblings, but we soon see he's lying, because the caller is actually the association, leaving him curious about why they are reaching out. He were led to the association building. The boy stood inside the room and asked why his test had been moved up. Jae-hoon replies that the hunters sent to Thailand are coming back that very night. Confused, the boy asks what that has to do with anything, so the man explains that a C-rank monster appeared in Bangkok a week ago, sending hunters from everywhere, but Korea did better than Japan, which is why the association is paying close attention. Thinking Hut realizes they just want to get him out of the way fast, so he loudly declares he's ready to start, while the man apologizes for the sudden change and explains that the test will be a fake battle in a virtual combat room. Suddenly a monster begins to take shape right in front of the boy, and he realizes it looks just like the simulation room he saw before everything changed. The doctor breaks in to warn him that the monster is a F-rank Xerus and the test will last an hour, meaning the longer he holds out, the more points he gets. Looking back, the man turns to his friends and asks if everything is ready. In the room with him were Hein, a man wearing glasses, and a woman with long hair. Nodding to show they're all set, the tanker gives the go-ahead for the 3 judges to start the test. Jahum speaks to the protagonist once more, declaring that the test has begun. The monster charges straight at the boy, who is still thinking about the news that high-ranking hunters are coming to the association. He raises his shield to block the blow, then strikes back hard enough to force the monster to run away. Hook realizes he must seize the chance to steal the skills of the incoming hunters. As the monster grins back at him, the boy knows that if he plays his cards right, he's going to win, but now his only focus is the test. Thinking about his super sense, he says he could get through this using only that. But since that monster usually takes 4 hours to hunt, if his stage 3 stats are better than stage 2, the association will definitely get suspicious. So, moving just like a student from a book, he fills the time carefully, doing neither too much nor too little to avoid drawing eyes. 3 hours later, Jae-hoon realizes the boy is using the exact same move, which surprises him since the kid showed so much confidence before the test began. She catches the judge's eyes, tells them she needs to step out for a moment, and promises to be right back. After she leaves, Hyong claims he ate too much for breakfast and needs to step out, leaving the suited man alone with the doctor in the room. The man took off his glasses and said, "There's no point in keeping this test going." Jad-hun begins to break out in a cold sweat and asks if he really means to do that. Without another word, the judge snatches up his phone to say he'll step out for a bit, and just outside, we see the woman is also on a call about Huck. Hug is still on the phone, raving about how amazing the boy is, before asking the other person if they remember that moves that look perfect in a book are actually the hardest to do. The other guy with glasses tells someone that the hero is amazing. While Cook keeps battling the beast, the man warns that since 2 other guilds are watching, they must strike first to stop anyone else from getting a chance. Unless the test finally ends, the woman behind the counter slides a document across the counter to the boy. She smiles, handing him his awakening registration certificate while telling him how well he's done. Our boy grabs the paper and reads over the details. The woman tells him that scoring a C rank on his first awakening is amazing, and he asks why that's such a big deal. She replies that this is a rare gift, since most people usually end up somewhere between rank F and E. As Cook walks out of the building, he can't help but wonder why he got a rank C again when he didn't do anything special. He chose to be happy, knowing that with his registration, he and his younger siblings could finally live freely and legally. Suddenly, a shout grabs his attention. Glancing to the side, he spots a sea of screaming fans shouting out their heroes' names. A trio of 2 men and a woman steps forward, and Hike recognizes them as the high-ranking hunters, Jaein, a negotiator and a second-class sorceress. Kim Yuno, the top-ranked national player, and Lee Dao, who leads the tanker rankings, stand out as the elite competitors. Beside Dao, the protagonist sees he's in a sour mood and wonders if he should muster up the courage to speak with him. He grins and makes up his mind to dive in, whatever comes next. Our boy stepped right in front of the trio, catching them off guard. Feeling a bit awkward, he tells them he's a big fan and is truly honored to meet them. Jay offers his autograph with a friendly smile, only to be politely refused by the boy, leaving the girl feeling awkward. Then he admits that he's actually a huge fan of Li Dao. Feeling annoyed, the man shouts a question that makes the boy shrink back and sweat even more, convinced he's in deep trouble. The man leans in close and asks him to repeat what he just said, which only makes him even more scared. Cook stares at the massive tanker, puzzled by its look, and honestly, it feels just like a villain's glare. The man walks toward him and he starts to think this might be the moment he finally gets beaten up. His face darkens with rage as he demands to know exactly what he just said. With no other option left, our boy insists that he only said he was a fan of them. Li Dao glanced back and asked his friends if they had heard that. Kim Yoon-ho laughed, and Jaein claimed they were so close, which left the protagonist puzzled. The woman says the idiot who showed up was the only reason they knew the tanker had fans. We rewind to 30 minutes ago, where inside a limousine on its way to the association, the trio was chatting. Sitting there, the negotiator remembers how a fan once approached, only for Do to drive them away. And from that day on, she never heard another person claim to be his fan. He crosses her arms and says she's never met anyone like that, reminding him that he knows she hates liars. The man insists he's telling the truth because, as the kind of guy he is, he naturally has fans, so the woman promises to give him exactly what he wants if someone claims to be his fan when they arrive at the association, but if not, he'll have to help her out instead. Curious, Dao asks what kind of help she wants, and the woman explains that since they plan to hunt a C-rank monster but lack enough tankers, if he loses the bet he'll have to be the main tanker just once, completely for free without getting paid a dime. Back in the present, the man grins with his victory while the injured man scowls in defeat. Dao asks again if Huck is really his fan, while our boy starts to wonder if he should run away. To everyone's surprise, the man reaches out to sign something but has no pen, so he just offers a handshake instead. Frozen in his tracks, the boy wonders what is going on, then decides to reach out and shake the other person's hand. To match the man's power, Da Po asks for his name, and the boy hands him a card with his number so Da Po can call anytime he needs help. Kim Yoon-ho steps into the talk to question if that boy's true name is actually Hook. Still in a daze, he nods his head. Then the man smiles, introduces himself, and reaches out his hand. With a handshake, the boy mimics the man's power, leaving him astonished that he's discovered such a rare treasure in that spot, while the tanker asks his friend what all the fuss is about. Kim Yongo hugs him and declares that his fans are true national treasures before they both step aside to rush and talk to the association's president. But the woman stayed back and complained that this was really irritating. Hak walks up and tells her he's a huge fan who'd consider a handshake the greatest honor of his life. But Bajan just turns her back and walks away, leaving the boy puzzled because she seemed so nice before when she offered him an autograph. With one power left behind, he turned and walked away, already carrying more than he could ever need. Meanwhile, in New York at the American Awakened Association, one man turns to another and asks, "What are we looking at on that computer screen?" As both watch Huck's test, his life force barely dropping to just 3% after 3 hours, the bald man asks where the boy is from, and the blonde man replies that he's from Korea. His partner, curious, wonders if it's a fake video, but the blonde man insists it's real, since they don't even realize they're being watched. He answers the phone, but his friend tells him to hold on and says it's too soon to tell the bosses, so Paulo then asks Kevin if he knows how many rank S awakeners are out there right now. They explain that only 5 people began at rank C, so now every country is keeping a close eye on these awakenings. Kevin keeps quiet while his friend warns that losing this boy could cost them a future title. The screen displays some surprising findings that need to be dug into. A voice tells the partner to take a really close look at the pictures. Under a bright sunny sky, a building stands in the middle of quiet streets, and a man calmly steps through the door at the top. He walks up to the door and reaches out to touch the knob. As he descends the stairs, he thinks back on how his defensive moves and ability to push back have grown stronger over time. The system says that universal skills make your defense stronger and cut down the damage you take. Long after, you can see the ruins of an old place resting under a bright, quiet sky. To him, scary monster looks like it's about to destroy its foes. The fighter gets ready to zap foes with his shield. A few moments later, he throws up a wall of stone to block the enemy's strike. Right then, the beast feels the hit and its strength starts to fade. Seeing his opponent hurt, he yells for Kim Yuo to come help. Even though Kim Yu's special skills don't make her hits stronger, the system points out that they make her faster and better at dodging attacks. It praised the sheer might of the lightning flash attack. Suddenly, the warrior dives from the sky to strike while the beast lunges back to fight. He vanishes into the fight and immediately strikes with a sure-crushing blow. Just then, he hits the monster right on its throat. The skill sparks to life, sending his moves zooming by faster than light itself. A smile slowly grows on the protagonist's face as he looks completely satisfied. As he walks down the stairs, he thinks about the amazing situation he is in. The new powers he copied from Li Dao and Kim Yuo were so awesome, they blew away everything he already had. By putting a few of them together, you'll be ready to take on even the toughest monsters from the early game zones. As soon as he steps into the apartment, he sees that everything is quiet and peaceful. But soon he begins to wonder if something strange is really happening. Out of nowhere, he walks up and spots something sitting on the counter. With one hand, he reaches out to touch the burger and instantly realizes how freezing cold it has become. A thought begins to take shape in his mind. Suddenly, the girl opens a door and wakes from a deep sleep. Confused, he turns to look at the girl again. She wonders why he is so late. The protagonist asked Yamjang if anyone had eaten dinner. Even though she's still tired, the girl says she thought it was a great idea to wait for him so everyone could eat together. Seeing what happened, he tried to tell her she should have eaten, but she said she wasn't hungry, so he asked why. Tears well up in her eyes as she tells him she had a nightmare where he died, and on top of that, he hasn't been answering his phone. As she holds him tight, she whispers that she was terrified because she couldn't reach him. But the protagonist was okay and went to calm Yoonjong, who looked really scared. Suddenly, another child popped into view, wearing his blue pajamas. The little boy was scared stiff because his big brother was taking so long. Now that all the trouble was over, everyone could finally share a meal of chicken together. He promised to spend more time with the kids when he returned, but his job made all that promise crumble into nothing. The three sit around the table, gobbling up the chicken like a happy family. Outside, it was already late, and the night had taken over everything. They were both fast asleep in their beds. In the meantime, the hero was messing around with something on his phone. With the objective in hand, he snapped a few photos and saw that everything was finally ready. All he had to do now was sign up the product and sit back to see if anyone wanted to buy it. Even so, he looked like he was trying to decide what to do while carefully watching everything around him. He felt it was a waste to sell just Karen's blessing and the mountain splitter. Slowly, his fingers reached for the card, but it didn't work because the card wasn't meant for him. Even so, he tried making a copy, but that didn't work either. In that instant, he knew there was no choice but to act. Then his eyes widened in surprise as a message about core generation flashed onto the screen. As soon as a new power forms, the boy's head throbs with pain, but the system tells him he has earned fresh points and new abilities. He didn't understand what was happening, but the noise in his head just kept getting louder and louder. He watched closely as the core generation loaded, sitting at just 1%. But he had no clue what that meant because Kilhine had never told him a thing about it. Still, he felt nervous to see what waited at the end of the AD loading. But suddenly the power rushes through every part of him. He looks thoughtful as he thinks back to how it felt to wake up. His eyes flashed bright blue, and he quickly checked his status to see what was happening. The ruined buildings stand empty and lifeless, like ghosts waiting for someone to return. In the middle of the street, a car drives right through the city's scattered trash. Inside the car, the hero typed his search into the system. The whole setup splits into two parts, the main one and the backup one. The master system is the central independent force that controls the spread of the derivative system across the dimension, even though it remains unawakened. Meanwhile, the copy system is a special power that bonds to just one person, letting them steal any skill, share ideas with each other, and even invent brand new ones. The copies spread to every living thing, using a strange new system that the main character didn't quite get. As he climbed higher, he dreamed of stealing powers from monsters, and after a long walk, he finally found his way home. To get his strength back, he took a sip of water. Finally, he realized the information was truly useful, thinking about how well it worked. Soon after, he chooses to peek at his status window. A 25-year-old named Kro Janyuk, who worked as a class copy master and stood at level 1 with growing powers, was ready for whatever came next. Right then, he saw the screen shift, revealing his new stats, extra points, and a fresh status line had just appeared. Trojan Hugh grins as the Twilight bracelet activates the All-Star plus 100 option, instantly pumping up his stats. He felt proud of his new rank and couldn't wait to take a look inside the core. He paused to realize that while the recharge point likely meant the battery's total capacity, the actual power used could have exceeded 20,000. If he'd added those bracelets, he could have made everything with amazing speed. But he knew the real mystery was that those stats were still stuck at level 1. He hoped that as he grew stronger, his power would grow too. Suddenly, a strange noise from below caught his attention. His feet rushed toward the building's edge. And just then, he spots something strange and tries to get everyone's attention. You're walking down the broken streets of a ruined city with a huge monster by your side. He doesn't waste a second. He spreads out the city map and takes a close look at every corner. Just as we hoped, the empty place around us was the perfect spot for our test. Meanwhile, the beast's face showed just how unhappy it was. Koi Janyuk didn't waste a second, sprinting to the parking lot to get a better look. And it turned out his enemy had no eyes at all, yet was terrifyingly strong. The boy stood frozen, waiting for the perfect moment to begin the fight. His eyes shift color as he brings his power weapon to life. He could pick his own weapon, like a spear, a sword, or a dagger. But the creature grew impatient and let out a scream. Its feet started inching closer to the hero. Your best bet is to call on the long bow to take on that powerful foe. Nay, the weapon starts to take shape in his hand. Right then, the protagonist finally got why Park Gang-ho was so tough. But there was no time to think because his opponent was charging straight at him. Koi Juna pulls back his bowstring and steps into his fighting stance. The arrow zooms straight at the monster's face and hits it dead on. With his weapon in hand, he unleashes fast, deadly shots. With fire in his eyes, he knows he has pushed his power to the limit, while his opponent is being battered from all sides and can only let out desperate screams. Not long after, the creature begins to lose the little balance it had left. Troy Jan Hyuk refused to quit, so he charged straight at his opponent to keep the fight going. With a sudden leap, he commanded the system to swap his blade for a longsword. He smiled with the bold confidence of someone who believed he had fully inherited Park Gang-ho's powers. As he stepped closer to the beast, he squeezed his sword handle until his knuckles turned white. By the end, he wanted to be just as tough as his hero. With a single blow, he sends the monstrous creature crashing down, leaving shards of its armor scattered all over the fallen Dark Knight. The hero feels great about winning and taking down his enemy. Glancing at his phone, he saw that over an hour and 20 minutes had already slipped by, but he knew that with all the other demons roaming around, it would take another half hour to get through it. Suddenly, he hears his phone ringing. As he stared at the screen, he finally realized the agreement was linked to the association. Used by the late hour, he hesitated to answer the call, but his curiosity got the better of him. Over on the other side, a woman named Kim Juvie from the front desk introduces herself. Without telling him exactly what she wanted, she asked if the boy was awake. Kim Jui tells us that a call from the secretary's office came out of nowhere. Just as the president asked for a private meeting, Jun-hyuk suddenly spots the monster appearing. He keeps his ear glued to the call while trying to pull together more details about the meeting. He couldn't set a time until he knew when the president would be there. The receptionist tells him he still has to be there at 7 in the morning, just like every other day. The clock read 6:20, giving the hero 40 minutes to reach the spot by 7 etran while the monster closed in fast. Jun-hyuk knew he'd be there in half an hour without any need to delay. He hung up the phone and turned his full focus to the new challenge ahead. Heavy steps echoed as the monster rushed closer. He raised his shield and fired the stun charge. The monster's strike was stopped right away. His eyes flare with a new light, and he surges forward, fueled by the crackling power of lightning. Suddenly, he zips past light speed to sneak up behind his enemy. The moment his hand touched her skin, he was offered a chance to steal the power of the weakest soldier in Vargo Grace's army. He doesn't waste a second, but instead accepts and lets the system take care of everything. He springs back down to the ground with a jump. Soon after, the perfect copy was already finished. The warrior calls out with his mighty voice, demanding that the subspace be opened. A bright, colorful spark that must have come from a low-quality crystal suddenly appeared before him, showing that something important had been found. Holding the glowing crystal, he pulled its power in to boost the core's strength. Right then, the C-grade crystal starts to be absorbed. Suddenly, power surges through the hero's entire body. His mind raced with one idea: boost the core level to buy precious seconds. Now fully changed, Choi Young-guk wondered what fight was waiting for him. And then the sunlight spread out over the land. Soon after, the hero steps through a glowing doorway and finds himself back in the busy city. Glancing at his phone, he realizes that at this pace, he'll reach his second awakening much sooner than expected. The clock ticks forward to show 65:05 in the morning. A rumble grows in the young man's stomach as he stands alone, feeling hunger creep into every part of his body. Not long after, he finds himself stuck in an elevator with a woman. He opened the system to peek at the fresh skill he just copied. He looked puzzled and curious, clearly not getting why the lowest-ranking soldier was being recognized. After hearing the explanation, the lowest-ranking soldiers of Vargo Grace would recognize him and refuse to attack. Stepping off the elevator, he keeps thinking about how to stop such attacks. As he trailed behind the secretary, he realized this skill would be a game-changer when he was all alone. The woman halts and swings the heavy door wide open. She gives the boy a warm smile and invites him inside, while the man with crazy hair in his suit looks super happy to see Kro Jang-yuk. Despite being a bit shy, the boy steps into the room with a calm heart. Chief tells him to sit in the chair and get comfortable. Smiling, he asks to chat casually, accepting the situation right away since the man seemed to mean it from the start. First, he lets the boy know how much he admires his being on time. The president of the association looks confused as Juk goes on to list every single thing he did for his brothers and sisters. A brief second, they stay quiet, passing looks back and forth. But then the chief suddenly bursts out laughing. Even with everything else going on, he started to take the boy's words seriously and stop seeing them as just a joke. In the conversation, he jumps straight to the point. Meanwhile, the hero sits quietly, waiting for the right words to form. He wasted no time in telling them that the group wanted to make a proposal. The president asked the young man to turn down every job offer from foreign guilds and remain in Korea. The thoughtful warrior stays quiet and carefully studies the situation. To his surprise, the man with wild hair is told that he never got an offer to join a foreign guild. Research shows that big American groups are really interested in hiring Young-guk. Sowa stared in wonder, realizing that what he had just learned was something he had never known before. Even with his face burning red, the president has to admit that the test data was hacked and the guilds might have already seen the secrets. It was all a mistake. The young man asks if anyone knows his true rank. The man quickly said everyone knew it, but Cho Janak didn't think being ranked C was impressive since he was only a first awakener. The second group of awakeners were given the C rank title because their numbers told a different story. By the end, the hero realized he was just like them. Poin Jun Hyuk stands frozen, not knowing what to do with the shocking truth laid before him. With a sharp focus, the man declares that by pushing his second awakening to its limit, he can jump straight to the top rank. The protagonist believes that with his second awakening locked in, he now powers rivaling a third stage awakener and might finally have a shot at becoming an S rank. Given the boy's amazing skills, he was a huge asset, and the group thought he was a real prize. So they couldn't just stand there and watch such a talented person get taken away. As he took the notebook from the secretary, he explained that he had set 3 demands: a starting fund of 1 billion and tax breaks for his entire group. In the end, he was given a whole set of top-tier equipment for free. As the president hands him a pen and explains the deal lasts until the second awakening, Choi Young-guk knows there is only one thing left to do: agree to the terms and sign. But the protagonist looked suspicious, pointing out that he was nothing more than a rank C. Even though he heard the offer, he told them he wasn't sold on the idea. All the help meant to keep him from leaving felt suspicious, so he asked if there were other rules, and suddenly the president stood up from his chair, seeing that the boy was very sharp. The deal came with a catch. He couldn't become a citizen of another country while the contract was in effect. Leaning against the table, he tells the story of how the young man can't join a guild and needs to talk to them about joining their adventures. If the group asked the boy to join a raid, he had to jump at the chance no matter what. Basically, Cho Young-hyuk wouldn't let anything stand between him and the group. In the end, the warrior bore no guilt of his own choosing, but he had barely time to think about those final conditions before his proposal came to pass. The president said the offer would vanish the second he spoke to the other guilds. But the young man knew exactly what he wanted, so he signed the contract without hesitation, leaving the confused man in the suit offering him more time to think. With strong resolve, the two grip hands to lock in their agreement. Beyond the city walls, crowds of folks are bustling about on every side. In a restaurant, a girl looks over the food choices with the waiter. Suddenly, a child's eyes went wide with wonder as they realized they were standing inside a giant shopping mall. Koijang Yukon dragged his two siblings along for a family trip. With excitement in his eyes, the boy asked if he could take a look at some t-shirts. Yamjang looks worried at the loud noise from her brother while the hero is having a great time. They are both shocked to find out they can pick out a few things to buy. The hero grinned and told his siblings they could pick their top 10 favorites. The kids are all beaming with joy as they party together. Even though everything was going wrong, he knew he had to stick it out until the protection was over. Koijan Hyuk's heart raced as he worried about the dangers waiting along the road. Suddenly, Yanjong holds up a beautiful blue dress for her brother to see. Anil instantly loves the outfit and tells his sister she has to get it. An employee steps up to tell the kids not to touch the clothes, while Junie looks at his to-do list and thinks about what he's done before. At that moment, he reassured the employee not to worry, promising to pay for the clothes himself. No matter what, he wasn't planning to leave Korea before he finished writing that list. Suddenly, a warning tells shoppers that an unexpected gate has just opened inside the mall. They repeat the details once more to show customers the real situation. They also ask everyone to stay calm and listen carefully to what the staff tell them. In the middle of the crowd, a woman whispers that hunters from Tibet are on their way soon. The orders said to stay inside the mall, but the customers were already rushing toward the exits. Outside, things were even more dangerous, so the smartest move was to follow the woman to get out safely. Panic sweeps through the room as people scramble to run away in fear. Ikon Jongkook watches the scene ahead, feeling the heavy tension in the air. As a hunter, he was ready to check on the trouble, but he asked the employee to look after his younger siblings while he was gone. Denjong looked terrified for his own safety and warned that it was too dangerous out there. Based on what the young man remembered, 5 D-rank monsters were hanging out near the store. That day, a monster chase into the big mall caused a building to crash down, and his hands shook with anger at what was happening. He drops to his knees and asks Yoonjong to look after her brother, Yoonil. Knowing the Tibet Guild won't arrive until after the mess is made, he steps forward with a steely resolve to face the monsters himself. In the end, he would have to face the situation all by himself, holding his breath while waiting for help to arrive. As monsters arrive and fill the streets with despair, a calm officer quietly guides people to find safety inside the mall. The air grows thick with panic as people start fighting each other while scrambling to push forward even faster. At the same time, the monsters begin spreading all over the city. 5 of them stood ready to tear everything apart as they moved forward. When he screams, the creatures start looking around. People are running away in fear, shoving one another as they go. Koijang Yuk stands right in the middle of the group, letting everyone rush past him without slowing down. Right then, his face twists in pure despair as he realizes he is all alone. The giants were marching right at him, and he didn't know how to fight back anymore. He clenches his jaw in fear and reaches out to open the subspace. Right next to him, a glowing doorway opens up, waiting for him to pick his special powers. A chilling wave of rage rolls through the air, revealing the beast's true fury. The young man stood his ground and blocked everyone, refusing to let them pass until he'd made sure his brother was safe. His shield stood ready to knock down every enemy that came his way. Once he sprang into action, he would use his lightning-fast moves to outsmart his opponent. The strike lands hard on the opponent's leg with a powerful blow. As soon as the attack hits, the creature lets out a scream of pain. He uses his speed to zip around the area, leaving his enemies confused and wondering where he went. All of a sudden, he halts his run and takes a good look at what's going on. Whoa, those creepy things track the hero's every move, twisting their bodies to follow him. Jan Hyuk taunts his rivals, daring them to step up and fight. The 5 of them look annoyed at that boy's bossy attitude. Without any delay, they sprint straight for their tiny target. Down a busy city street, cars and trucks get stuck in a huge jam right in the middle of the traffic. As the car refused to move, the man's anger grew deeper by the second. The traffic jam got so bad with cars trying to leave that even the police couldn't clear it up. Frustrated by the terrible traffic, he is startled when someone suddenly grabs his shoulder. His coworker works hard to keep Dasu from panicking, trying every trick he knows. The city's fight was happening right before our eyes on the live broadcast. In the middle of the chaos, Jernyuk did his best to hold back the creatures with every skill he had. As the cameras roll on the fight, a young man on screen says he's amazed by the courage of the fighter nobody knows. Sitting inside the car, the men lean in to watch the news on their phones with total focus. Suddenly the face of the young man jumps right into Dao's mind. He didn't waste a second. He quickly told them that he knew the young man who was fighting all by himself. His coworker pointed and asked who that man was, looking totally curious to find out his name. Dao grinned and told the boy that he was his biggest fan. Confused, his friend didn't seem to get what he was saying. The man says that after coming back from Thailand, he ran into a fan at the association but forgot what his name was. While the fight rages on, the young man risks his life just to capture the best moments on stream. He knew that if the unknown fighter died, he would be the next to fall. With his gear strapped on, he keeps reporting the urgent news while acting totally professional by ignoring the danger around him. In the end, the young man asks his followers to be generous and give what they can. The comments show how shocked the viewers are as they panic and talk fast. One person insisted that even Dao wouldn't be able to fight like that. Ian reads that comment. The man feels deeply confused and upset by the doubts cast on his. Without wasting a second, he jumped out of the car while his worried friend watched in confusion, not knowing what Dao was up to, though Dao was ready to study anyone he could find. According to a determined look on his face, nothing could stop him from reaching his goals. He steps out of the car, leaving his friend all by themselves. Right then, the crowd instantly rushed to follow their leader. One warrior tells the confused man to step aside. Suddenly, every warrior stood right beside Desu, ready to fight. His last command was for Jo Han Woo to find out who that new person was. He warned that without knowing his name, he couldn't share much, but the chief remembered the man's identity, Kim Jong-uk. Finally, the captain checked to see if everyone was ready to fight. Seeing their determined faces, everyone knew they were ready to follow the master's orders and charge into battle to protect their city and people. As soon as they heard the order, everyone took off running straight into the battle. Just as a monster lunges to strike, the warrior moves with practiced speed, slipping past the blow with ease. Even so, the force knocks him down to the ground. His face is already soaked in sweat from the fierce battle. Thinking it was a dirty fight, he starts asking for help in his prayers. This was the perfect moment to use your amazing sense. He always plays it safe and dodges the hardest hits he can possibly see coming. His enemies were terrible, crazy monsters who had too much power. Junhyuk sprints with all his might, knowing that fighting two monsters at once is no easy task. He gradually slows down and comes to a halt right next to the creature's sharp claws. With a loud roar, the monster spots the perfect moment to strike. In that moment, the hero saw his trick had worked and the opponent was fooled. But he spots something strange and is totally baffled. Suddenly, the opponent launches a surprise attack, swinging its huge paw to trample him. Deza Fao shows up with his whole team, fully ready to lend a hand wherever they can. As he steps closer, his shield shields his face, and with all his power and skills gathered, he lands a mighty hit thanks to the stun boost. The creature is totally confused, having no idea where that sudden hit came from. Jan Hyuk couldn't believe his eyes when his idol stepped onto the battlefield right alongside him. His orders are for Kim Doohoon and Jening Sujang to look after the two Khans. Jae Hwan stepped up to make sure no one else was left behind in the dark. You were told to heal Cho Jan Hyuk and stay by his side until the battle was over. As the boy landed on the ground, he asked the guildmaster why everyone was so late. Dao sees that the boy never stops talking, so he knows he can now take on two more monsters. And once fully healed, the hero teams up with a squad to defend the city. As he speaks, Duel pours his power into the boy's body. Yuji didn't waste time trying to draw fire. Instead, he switched to tanking mode to crush them fast. As Dao passes the shield to the boy, he needs to make sure the kid really gets his plan. Every second lost made the trouble worse. From a distance, they spotted another creature coming their way, and now the two were ready to stand together and fight. The car rushes toward them, getting faster and faster. Gabon in the dark shelters, folks squeezed into every nook to stay safe from the chaos above. The broadcast said the T-Beat Guild had reached the scene but couldn't beat a single Khan yet. Young Jang looked so worried as he heard those words. The employee spots the little girl's fear right away, so Unchil calmly tells her not to worry because everything will be under control in a flash. As they kept talking about Cho Yoongyuk's safety, news of new reports arrived, and then the hunters finally managed to defeat the first Karen. The whole shelter bursts into cheers and excitement when they hear the news. The kids cheer with joy as they see their side taking the lead in the battle. Al, a no, filled with curiosity, stepped forward to peek at the commotion, but a worker grabbed him and warned that venturing outside was far too dangerous. Before she could reach the boy, he took off running. Soon after, another Carven fell to the group, leaving just 3 survivors. The two men embrace in joy, soaking up messages pouring in from people everywhere as they celebrate their win. They talk about how well the T-Beat Guild works and try to figure out who that new recruit really is. For nearly an hour, he fought hard to keep 5 monsters at bay. Uncol walked up to the men and told them that the hunter was his older brother. The boy felt so proud of the amazing things Chonyanya could do. It was already dark outside, with the street lamps casting a dim glow over the quiet roads. The war wasn't done yet, so the warrior kept running around with his shield in hand. He leaps into the air to make Karan look away. His weapon shifts into a deadly edge, ready to finally bring the monster down. 7 hours later, the battle was finally over. Jun-Yuk suddenly realizes he is bone-tired. Now he could finally rest, feeling like he might just topple over any second now. Do thank the boy for the amazing job he had done. He picked his words with care before asking the young man something strange. The guildmaster asked if Junhook was the very first person to recently wake up with a kank rank. Right then he snapped to and understood this was a serious chat. By the end, the man starts to wonder if the young man might just be a little strange. The main character just stands there, lost and unsure about that question. All of a sudden, a voice called out to the brother. Everyone, including his brothers and the worker, walked out of the shelter. Seeing his family nearby, he shouts to let them know he's there. The kids sprint toward their brother, safe and sound with no danger around them. After everything they went through, they shared a warm hug. Jun-Yuk looks so proud watching his younger siblings act perfectly. Right then, Dao learns a secret about the boy. But the research showed nothing strange, so the hero pushed all the trouble aside and just soaked up the joy of the moment. On their way home, they'd always make a quick stop to grab some chicken. Danielle looked thrilled, yet Yanjiang was itching for something different to munch on. Just as Junyuk finally said they could eat anything they wanted, the employee who had been watching the whole thing suddenly showed up. The woman thanked him for protecting her and her team, but he replied that she should thank him for taking care of her siblings before giving her a surprised hug. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she grew more thankful for what he did. Ikoi Janyuk's face turns red with embarrassment. Soon, everyone in the town saw the famous transition hunter arrive. Everyone said he looked handsome and was even more charming in person. Crowds surged forward to hug and cheer the hero who had saved the city. Even so, he still didn't get how everyone knew who he was. The sky is filled with clouds, signaling a peaceful day ahead. In the office, the TV showed the May news from Seoul, featuring the 5 S-rank monsters. The report tells the story of the team that held the city and the Cho Yongi who played a part in it. Finally, the judges gave him the top score with no doubt, but then the association president showed up, eager to talk to the new star. However, the warrior didn't care for that kind of joke and asked to stop being teased, so the man, with a bit of curiosity, asked if the young man was busy dealing with the fame from the gate incident. Ever since that morning, people kept calling to try to hire him, but the association had already taken care of everything. Because the battle was so painful, the boy could call the president if he needed to. Shifting the topic, the man tells him that officials and the government say the young man is not following the rules. It looks like they had something that broke the usual ranking rules. Even so, they were just a type of mutant, nowhere near as powerful as an S-rank. Koi Janiev leaned in and asked if he'd need to sign up. The best move was to sign up with the US government for help, though only 3 out of many regular applicants got officially registered, and since the process was hard and she had 2 siblings to care for, leaving Korea was a very tough choice. Now that they've agreed, the two can talk to the association about raising the support for Cho Jaek. Since his last contract assumed he was a rookie, the association offered terms for an irregular, but when the warrior asked to wait for proof, they told him it wasn't needed. First, they would raise the support fund to 5 billion and keep the tax cut rate exactly the same. And are adding a 5th top-tier rental vehicle to the fleet, perfect for hunting the most dangerous beasts. Only just the way they are with no new worries. Koijan Yinuk looks completely puzzled by this strange and suspicious mess. Still, the president leans in to figure out why the boy is staring at him like that. In that very second, he asked about the hunting vehicle. He wondered if he could fit it all into one single day. On the highway, a white car suddenly slams its gas and zooms forward. A voice called out that it was Desu, the tanker from the T-Beat Guild. Juno drives his brand new car and calls the master. The man had told him to just call if he ever needed help, but since his real goal was to meet, they decided to open the subspace and get together right then. The portal swung open, and the protagonist stepped his hand into the humming energy, knowing Stania would be there in just 10 minutes. He holds a card in his hands, trying to figure out what's going on. Before, he chose to keep Kieran's blessing and the mount splitting because they were too precious to sell. Instead of selling his cards for cash, he tried to unlock their special powers, but the process failed because he didn't fit the system, and after the gate incident, everyone's focus shifted from Dao to Choi Janyuk. That's why he had put together a little present for the man who had given him his life. It was a powerful card that let you split a tanker's mount skill in half. Just then, Desao is stunned to hear about the card, knowing only 9 exist in the whole world, but the user must be super careful or they'll get hurt. The main character acts cheerful about selling his gear cheap to a coworker, but he's actually hoping to get a little favor out of the deal. Curious, Daisu wonders what the young man might need. The moment Young Yuk figured out the skill, all he wanted was a simple handshake. A little while later, the hero steps into a neat and bright office and gently hands over the special card meant as a gift. Desa can't believe his eyes as he sees that precious item, worth at least 4 billion, right in front of him. But in an auction, that item could easily fetch a much higher price. That's why the man couldn't figure out why the boy wanted to sell the card for so little money. Deep down, the reasons he made up for his actions simply didn't add up. But the seller had already decided, and besides, he'd learn the skill no matter what. Selling to a stranger felt much worse than giving the card to someone he respected. That as the very first one to wake up, he could grab the power right then, reach that rank, and find his match. The two men paused to think about that plan. In that sudden shift, they started talking about their huge pile of cash which had grown all the way to 20 billion. Desa asked the boy if he'd rather take the money or swap it for something else. At that exact moment, he starts wondering if new gear might soon be on its way. Not long after, the three of them stand right before a huge building with glass walls. They told the young man that the building cost 42 billion and asked if he wanted to make such a huge deal. But he also wonders if he might one day become a building owner. While standing next to him, the guildmaster begins a chat. He grins and asks the boy if he liked the building. Suspicious, he thinks hard about the offer and stays quiet. Finally, they stop stalling, and the boy agrees to give the building away in return for the skill card. The master looks thrilled about his new find. Suddenly, a powerful energy swarmed over him and swallowed the whole world around him. Jiang's eyes shine with happiness as he watches the scene. The system is happy to report that the hunter picked up the new skill without a hitch. Now in Asia, Li Dezhao and Wang Weichong from China were the only two tankers who knew how to split mountains. His Asian ranking was about to climb as the two shook hands to seal the deal, and the master then curiously asked what the young man planned to do with his new building from now on. Based on his own plans, he was setting out to try his hand as a mercenary. For now, he had to hunt safely in the beginner areas. But despite having plenty of money, he couldn't forget they were living in a dangerous world and he had to protect his younger siblings. When the great disaster took his parents, he was left to face life's toughest moments alone. Because of that, their childhood was a terrible nightmare they never wanted to remember. All he hoped for was that his brothers and sisters would have a future as bright as the past was dark. Johnny wanted to give him a life without money worries, full of hope and freedom. Issa watches the wise boy closely, his heart touched by the life story he just heard. Instead of dreaming it, a hunter tells him that living like that is impossible. The big disaster was just the start, and the world was slowly slipping toward total ruin. The monsters kept coming back more often, and our supplies for fighting were disappearing fast. And on top of everything, the dangerous city was filled with villains, assassins, and thieves. Lately, a spate of murders has been targeting hunters in the Gangnam area. Everyone whispered that the notorious villain known as Shiinsu, who ruled over Dagu, was indeed the suspect. Dao couldn't believe they had to fight monsters while trying to stay safe from humans. That's why he told his friend that his family didn't want their building because they just wanted a safe world without monsters or heroes like them. Meanwhile, a tiny building sat in a deep, quiet silence. The hurt soldier waited with nervous hope for the group to come back. Out of the shadows, a hooded figure begins to emerge. In an instant, the soldier spots the notorious Shiinsu. Grinning, he says that as a villain, he worked in many places, including Dagu. Just then, the fighter felt his heart drop as he realized he was in deep trouble. The assassin laughed at the man, telling him that his friends had all left him behind. But the warrior doesn't waste another second. He rushes straight at the villain with his weapon high in the air. But the bad guy is quicker than us and slips right out of the way before we can hit him. Soon after, he lands a sharp blow to his enemy's stomach, and the man drops to the ground in agony. Shinsu realized the soldier had called for help, so he knew he couldn't stick around for long. He curiously asks the man if he knows anyone named Cho Janyuk, but the man just ignores him and tells him to go to hell. Being the soldier didn't know the target, he strikes his throat again. The assassin looks like he's having the time of his life, grinning ear to ear. After taking another life, he turns to go. He stared at the fight against the 5 monsters playing out on his phone screen. With his face soaked in blood, he pauses to think before making his choice. Suddenly, he finds himself clicking the like button on the video. Suddenly, his face twists into a terrifying grin and he begins to laugh with a dark, dangerous intensity. A week later, a scary monster showed up in Goyang's beginner hunting zone and waited to attack people. The boy throws all his strength into stopping the attack. That was the final meal we'd catch today. From far away, the crowd watches the battle unfold. The man stands his ground as the monster draws near, while a fighter nearby shields himself with a bow and arrow. Suddenly, the young men are thrown right into the middle of the arena.